Hi, this is Diane Mourglia-Swerdlow with Expansions.com. It's always fun to bring you my take on the news. The news itself might not be so fun, but it's kind of interesting to see what kind of show the global handlers are putting on for you. You know, I may have told you this before, but I just want to remind you that they do use the idea of shock value to open up your frequency. And so a lot of these things that I'm going to be talking to you about, you want to keep that in mind. And, you know, it's kind of funny because when I was a little girl, my father used to tell me this story about how there was a fellow trying to get his mule to move, and he couldn't get his mule to move, and he talked nice to him and did all kinds of things, and the mule just stood there. So there was a man watching him, and he walked over to the guy, and he says, you know, I can get that mule to move. And the guy says, you can? He says, yeah. He goes over and he picks up a 2x4 and he whacks him over the head, and all of a sudden the mule would move. And the guy said, what did you do that to my donkey for? And he says, well, I had to get his attention first. So that 2x4 was that shock value that gets your attention, and once you have your attention, they get you to move in the direction they want you to move. So shock value, pay attention to that, because the more you're shocked, it opens you right up. If you have an accident, that opens you up. That is the shock to the system that they're looking for to create that entryway so that they can get in there and control you. And as we were talking about last night on the webinars, in the medium green is holding yourself in your center so that you can observe what's going on and understand it without being shocked by it and then led around while you're in that state of shock. So if you have not been participating in my series of webinars on color, which is part of the language of hyperspace, if you are a gold member, you can watch these after the fact. And I do highly recommend this particular series because I am going to be continuing to build with you about the language of hyperspace, which is color, tone, and archetype. The global handlers are very aware of these laws and recipes, and they are using the laws and recipes against you. The recipe itself is neutral. It depends on what you do with the recipe. So they're using it for what we would call the negative, which is to control you. We're learning what that recipe is so that we can use it in a positive way to build our own recipe and develop our own sense of self-empowerment. Okay, we moved inside because all the lawn people are out today doing their leaves and everything else. So Illuminati sabotage is what I think, and I'm just teasing. Anyway, so here we are. I want to continue on. It was a good intro, and I want you to think about. So I left it there, and I left you so you could see the beautiful outside, get you in the mood. Because what we're going to be talking about next is a little bit more serious, but again, if you get in your center and you understand it for what it is, there's no reason to have any fear about it. You just want to watch the trends and know that you have a choice whether or not you want to participate in it. Personally, I choose not to participate in it, but I do want to know what's out there, and I want to watch what's happening because I want to avoid the pits and the nets and all the traps that they have set so that I don't fall into those. And I would tell you to be aware of the same things. Alright, so I've kind of categorized these a little bit for you so you can kind of think about it in your head as we go. The first category I have is under New World Religion and Androgyny, which is kind of together because that kind of all falls together. I want you to remember that last week we talked about the nude, and we talked about the women in their lace dresses now, which underneath it has the skin color, so it looks like there's just lace over their body. And so I said to you, you know, the next thing is we are going to be seeing the bare breasts, and that is going to be becoming acceptable. Well, most of you at this point may remember the Janet Jackson wardrobe malfunction is what they're now calling it. That's kind of the term. At her halftime Super Bowl performance some years ago when supposedly, you know, her breast popped out. And that was seen on live national television. Of course, now we have Madonna, and she was performing at a concert in Turkey where she actually pulled down part of her top and exposed her nipple. So, and of course, Turkey is a very Muslim country, and it is very conservative when it comes to the female body, at least publicly. So here we have it now. It's being introduced, it's being talked about all over the internet that Madonna I wanted to call her manure. It kept coming out of my mouth. I guess that's a combination of Madonna and nude. Maybe the same thing at this point, I don't know. But anyway, she exposed her breast We're talking about that all over the internet. This is the shock value now that I was talking about to open your frequency, so that after a while, after you've seen so many of these exposures, it's no longer shocking. You go, it's another breast, you know, big deal. And you go on and it becomes normal. So the abnormal becomes normal, often via shock value. Now, along the same vein of thinking, I also talked to you last time about all the pornography that's going on, and I told you how that as well is going to be considered normal. And here this last week there was an article that I read in the Huffington Post. It was called something like Mom Makes Pornography. Okay, Mom gives you a version of this lovely nurturing woman, and now we've put that together with pornography. And they did an interview, a very lovely interview with this woman about how her career just kind of segued into now she's making pornography, and how that her views have changed 180 degrees because now that she's involved in it, it's not exactly what she thinks. So I want to just read you part of this because, again, it confirms just within a week's time what I was telling you. She says that I now have a much better understanding of how normal it is for men to enjoy porn, just like they enjoy sports or an action movie, and because I've learned that his watching porn isn't about me at all. I have stopped comparing myself to porn stars and now realize that my spouse isn't comparing me to them either. He's just enjoying a fantasy in a pretty harmless environment. Furthermore, my spouse has never turned down sex with me to watch porn. But if that were the case, we'd still fight. I'm not a complete 180. I think that's her referring back to that she's turning 180 degrees. Because although I don't mind my spouse enjoying porn, I don't engage in watching it with him. That will be the next step. Because for me, it's hard to enjoy. It makes me think of work. Because remember, she's already producing it. But the idea, here's Mom. Hey, this is a normal thing for her husband. Now, like most women out there, they're not watching it like the men are. The next step, well, the men and women will be watching it together. And again, it's the sexual aspect is beside the point. What they're doing is they're taking your mind and they're twisting it because they're teaching you that sexuality is one thing when it's really something else. And again, I do hope that all of you have read my book, True Reality of Sexuality, and have also seen my DVD series, which is on sexuality, ritual, and relationships, when we talk about what sexuality really is versus what they're trying to turn it into. So that's the point. We want to find out what the trends are, what they're doing to us and why, and do what you want to do, not what you're led to do. And again, that old saying, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make it drink. I used it myself on my site the other day, because here are all these hyperspace oversold tools and techniques laid out for you. All you have to do is use them to make a difference in your life and to create your self-empowerment. They do exactly the same thing. They lead the path, they make it very attractive, they make it very normal, and they lead you to the edge of the water trough, and lo and behold, you drink. And then you are upset because now you're starting to figure out that they've turned you into a slave and you don't know how it happened. You're Mr. and Ms. Innocent out there. You know, no, everybody's a willing participant on some level. Nobody is forcing you. You are doing it willingly, so take responsibility. Okay, next story. There is a kindly older black woman named Alice Walker with a series of videos out there. And this particular one, which I found interesting, is talking about how you women need to not call each other guys. You know, you need to have a friendly talk with your best friend and say, hey, let's not call each other guy anymore, because that's taking away from our femininity. Now, I found this particularly interesting because, first of all, I don't know women that call each other guys, other than if we're talking to a group of people and we might say, hey, come on, you guys, as a general rule. But now she's bringing this out, guy. This is a guy. And I do remember, and I don't think this is popular anymore, but I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong, when the women and men were calling each other dudes. And the first time I ever heard a young girl call another young girl a dude, I thought, you know, just doesn't make sense to me. Reminded me of the Barnyard movie, which I had talked to you about before, that I saw with my children, where they had the male cows that were walking upright with the female udders on them. Again, androgyny. And in that movie, again, I'm going to remind you, there were two male cows with the udders that performed some kind of stunt that was successful, and they clinked their glasses together and they said, here's to the new world order, right in this children's movie. So that was a few years ago. So here we are. dude maybe didn't catch on, so now it's guys. So again, this is like talking about the pink elephant in the room. It's like, okay, so they're saying to you one thing while the message is becoming clear. And the more they tell you not to do something, oftentimes the more that you do it. So that's interesting as far as the androgyny. Now, the next phase that I want to talk to you about is the word resurrection, because that is not only a trigger word, but when we talk about the New World religion and resurrecting the image of Jesus Christ out there, we're hearing that word more and more, resurrect. For example, there was a Brazilian boy who was 7 years old who was being prepared to be buried. He sat up in his coffin and asked for a drink of water, and people thought that he had come back to life. They gave him the water, or I don't think he actually drank the water, but by the time they got back with the water, I believe he was laying down again, and again they pronounced him dead. Interestingly, I want you also to remember that Stewart had reported on a story here a couple weeks ago about reanimating corpses and about what they could do with electrical energy to reanimate corpses. And it makes me wonder if this is not being done to some of these people, because this isn't the only story about resurrection. For example, and I meant to put the date in here, this was in January, that there was a 67-year-old mother of 3, again the word they use in the article is resurrected, 12 days after being pronounced clinically dead. This happened in Nigeria back on January 7th. And then I have another story, this one, this happened I believe in May. I would have to go back and look up the date. I thought I put this in my article, but we'll find that out for you. A 95-year-old Chinese woman comes back to life. That she was had been declared dead. They had her laid out for a wake in her house, and when they came to check or to see her, the coffin was empty and everybody was terrified. They found her standing in the kitchen, and she said that she was very hungry because she had slept for so long and she wanted to cook something to eat. Now, don't you think that's strange? If I woke up in a coffin, I think I would be screaming and calling for people to come help me, not just casually get up and go have something to eat. So I just thought that was, a little bizarre. However, this part is even more bizarre because the medics are saying that this woman suffered, quote, an artificial death, which means when a person has no breath but their body remains warm. So anyway, this is a new term I have not heard, artificial death. So she also was resurrected. And then in April, we had a stillborn baby in the UK that was sent to the morgue. 12 hours later, the mother went down to say her final goodbyes and found that the baby was still warm and breathing. So I think that there's a lot more going on here than what they're telling you about. But we're finding more and more of this. Now we hear artificial death. Of course, we have all the zombie stuff going on out there. Pay attention, and the word resurrect to me is very interesting considering what they have planned in New World religion, which, if you will remember, and how could you forget, all the cannibalistic activity that's going on. I found, again, another extremely interesting article that talked about an expert who is a primary therapist at a treatment center in California, saying that people can be addicted to cannibalism. Now, how do they know this? Well, they know this because this is what she says. People, her name is Karen Hyland. People who have engaged in this act report feelings of euphoria or a get high by performing the action to completion. These individuals have psychopathic tendencies and are generally not psychotic. They know exactly what they are doing. She says that cannibalism begins as a fantasy which the person plays out in his or her head. But when that person gets a taste for real, again quoting her, the pleasure center of the brain becomes activated and large amounts of dopamine are released, similar to what happens when someone ingests a drug like cocaine. Again, how do they know this? Once that happens, the burgeoning cannibal's brain becomes conditioned to seek out the activity in order to obtain that feeling again, which leads to a cycle of cannibalism that can only be stopped through outside intervention. Okay, the last addiction that we found after alcohol, after drugs, then they told us that we were addicted to sex. So now they have sex therapy clinics for people who are addicted to sex. Now, going to have people addicted to cannibalism. So interesting turn and twist on things, but you're going to watch because more and more of this is going to happen. And again, these are things Stewart and I told you about a long time ago, that people said, oh, you know, they're not going to be eating flesh on camera again. Back to the Netherlands. News anchors that ate parts of each other's bottoms I reported on to you last week, plus when it first happened. So watch these trends, because as bizarre as they sound today, they are happening. And the last thing in this particular genre that I wanted to bring to your attention is, of course, we had the man who cuts off his own penis with an X-Acto knife. Now, again, who does these kind of things? People who are really triggered. You want to take care of yourself, because you don't want to be in this situation, obviously. You don't want people around you to be in this situation, and you don't want it affecting you. Okay, with that said, I want to move along to the space alien / alien category. Okay, the Huffington Post announced that China is announcing a manned space launch this month. Now, they made that sound like this month is like, wow, we just didn't know, because this is sudden, this is unexpected, this is China. China is going to launch 3 astronauts to dock with an orbiting experimental module, and the crew also might include its first female space traveler. Like, whoa, let's get shocked again. The government has not said how long the mission will last, but again, it's unexpected, it's about space, it's about China, all these things, the shock value, they want you to get disturbed about that. Now, following on that heels, we also hear that there is an asteroid warning system that is being called for to report calls for international effort to avert possible catastrophes. And again, where did you hear that from? Expansions.com. We've been telling you about that they're going to be talking about objects in space, that they're coming closer to the Earth. You know, all the things that we've been telling you about, they're really stepping this up, about bringing this to your attention. And the article says that the nations of the world need to work together to develop a warning and communication system that could mitigate the worst effects of a catastrophic asteroid strike. Okay, again, this is nothing new, because it's already happening behind the scenes, but for other reasons. But they're bringing this out publicly so that you too can be shocked about this. Now, this also was to me the most interesting article that I have seen in a long time. This, again, talks about something that is designed for shock value. Remember what Stewart and I have been telling you. If that they're telling you, think about what's going on that they're not telling you. This was a video, again, on AOL. There was a man, an unnamed man, that I haven't seen before, who was the reporter. They did not tell you where this report was taking place, but he had interesting things to say. He said, quote, "We were told that the space shuttle program was dead. NASA's shuttle program is finished, but the U.S. Air Force has a ship orbiting the planet right now." Shocked? What is in it? That's a secret. And then he goes on to talk about how that you thought that this space shuttle program was interesting. He says the space shuttle program is, quote, child's play, because there's something much more advanced going on, which is the U.S. Air Force program. There is now a shuttle orbiting the Earth. The media wasn't invited. The mission is a secret. However, for some odd reason, this reporter knows that it's a Boeing X-37B, whatever that means. Whatever it's carrying is secret. And this is something else. For some reason, it's not secret. The personnel was wearing biohazard suits. Again, how does he know this stuff? Because some of it's secret, some of it's not. I'm a little confused here about why we even know this and why it's being put out there. Now, the orbit, we are told, takes it continuously over Syria, Pakistan, Iran, and North Korea, all enemies of the U.S., and now we're told that it's the second mission. The first time it was up for 7 months. And anytime we have missions that are secret like this, it's for national security reasons, either weapons or national security. That was what was told on this particular little video that was put out. So again, we have something for public consumption, which was the space shuttle mission. And now here we're being told that this is much more serious. Oh, and this has been going around the Earth, and it's solar powered. So it's apparently been orbiting for about a year. but if you have a chance, look this one up, because again, these are their secrets. We don't know how they know these particular secrets, which secrets they're keeping and which secrets they're letting out, but they're trying again to confuse you with making you appear that it's all normal. Nobody's questioning these things. And I wanted to make a correction. I have actually a couple of corrections that I'm going to do. This is the first one. I told you last time about a Dutch startup company that is working on establishing a colony on Mars, and I gave the incorrect date last time. The correct date is 2023. It says in 2022 a crew of 4 will embark on a 7-month flight to the Red Planet and stay there for the rest of their lives. A new team will make the trip every 2 years, which will enable the colony to grow. This is an extraordinary project by people with vision and imagination, says Nobel-winning physicist Dr. Gerard 't Hooft, a mission ambassador for the privately funded venture. So again, we've already told you that there are colonies on Mars. Now they're bringing this to your attention, 2023, and I believe that will probably be stepped up, because now they're saying in 2022. They'll go, oh, we can do that sooner than this. You watch, that will happen as well. Also, you may not know how this is related to space, but I'm going to tell you, you may be reading about the spider invasion in India. Northeast India to be exact, in which 2 people have died. Now to me, when I hear about a spider invasion, I'm thinking about stuff, you know, all over the place of people dying left and right, but only 2 people have died, of course, thank goodness. But in my mind, what they want you to understand is that word invasion. That they want you to get that in your mind, shock value, open your frequency to the word invasion. So we've got resurrection, remember, that's being put out there. We have invasion, that's being put out there. So lots of things going on. Another thing that's interesting to me, and there's only 2 of these, and usually things come in 3s, but I will bring this to your attention because not too long ago there was a post on the internet about Jason Padgett, who was attacked by muggers outside of a karaoke club in Tacoma, Washington. And interestingly enough, that after his attack, wherever he looked, he was able to see complex mathematical formulas like the Pythagorean theorem. For example, he says every single little curve, every single spiral, every tree is part of that equation. He says that fractals, quote, are shapes that when you take the shape apart into pieces, the pieces are the same or similar to the whole. For instance, he can produce a visual representation of pi, the infinite mathematical constant, which begins with 3.4. According to the Daily Mail, he's the only person in the world known to have this skill. Now, prior to this, he was a college dropout. He currently worked at a futon store. And before the mugging, he could not even draw. So he had some kind of, again, a shock value. It brought out some interesting, unknown quality within himself, and now his whole life has changed. So the next step is, again, this is just now in the news. However, this man, Jason Padgett, this happened to him 10 years ago. In 2006, we have another man, which they're just now putting on the news, who lost part of his hearing due to a traumatic brain injury in 2006. However, now he is a professional piano player, but he cannot read music. He's never been taught how to play the instrument. He had this serious accident in 2006. He suffered a serious concussion after hitting his head in a swimming pool, and now they're bringing it forward that he's a musical savant. So this is 2, and usually it comes in 3, so watch the news for something else. But again, why are they bringing it to our attention about the head injury? Why are they bringing it that this is going to cause a savant? And why are they digging up the old news and putting that out now? So if you have an idea, I'd be interested, because that one I haven't quite figured out yet, but I'm sure sooner or later that will become clear. I also wanted to just briefly mention about surveillance cameras that they're again telling you about. I'm sure they've had these for eons of time at this point. Surveillance cameras that can identify suspicious human activity without human supervision. And this, of course, is bringing up all kinds of issues and outrage. Again, the shock value. They're talking about putting it into effect in San Francisco, and of course accusing them of Big Brother, you know, blah, blah. You've heard it all before, but that's out there. Just be aware of it. And finally, I wanted to mention about Facebook, because Facebook, you know, they're doing all kinds of things on our social internet, which is like the new thing that you have to be a part of, or you're just not part of society at all. Down in Brazil, they are putting up hangers on items of clothing. And on those hangers, they have electronic gadgets, I guess you'll call them for lack of better things, that are connected to Facebook. And you can actually vote if you like this particular piece of clothing. This is all over the world. So when you're shopping and you see on the hanger how many people like on Facebook this particular item of clothing, the idea is it will influence you to buy it. So they are trying that out to see if that will work. Now, my other correction that I mentioned to you earlier was that when I talked about the plastic surgery and a couple of other things going on in Brazil, I said that Brazil is a poor country, and a lot of people wrote in saying you're wrong, your facts are all wrong, blah blah, and it's true. Brazil is not a poor country. There are many areas in Brazil that are extremely poor. It seems like to me, and you probably correct me on this, either there are people with a lot of money or people that are very impoverished. So overall, however, Brazil is not a poor country, and I do want to correct that publicly for you Brazilians out there who keep writing to me about that. So my apologies to you. And that's really what I have to share. So again, watch the trends out there, and above all else, be mindful of your participation in what is going on out there. Be mindful of what is happening, to do that shock value, to open up your frequency, to throw something else in, and to reel you around before you know what is happening. I will advise you, Hyperspace Oversoul Tools will help you. You can go on my site, you can read the people who are graciously leaving their comments, who have used our tools and techniques. And those of you who haven't left a comment on our products and services, I'm going to thank you in advance. Please go and do so, because there is so much out there. And I've told you again, I've told you this before. How do you hide a pebble? You hide a pebble in a beach full of other pebbles, so you can't find that one you're looking for. Well, I will tell you that Hyperspace Oversoul Tools work, but don't take my word for it. Try it. Get the learning for yourself, and that is the point of our work. We teach you to be self-empowered. Connect yourself to your own source so that you are guided internally rather than externally. Take that leap of faith. Join our membership side, because we have amazing discussions going on that we do not put on the public side. Because if you put your dollar out there, that means you are committing your energy. Money is energy, and once you commit your energy, you get more out of it, and we put more into it because we know you're serious. So the deeper discussions you will find on our membership side, violet, silver, and gold. All kinds of amazing things happening over there that help you stay safe, that help you elevate your life, that help you with your internal guidance, and also help you to recognize what's going on out there and not react or choose to participate or add to it. Change yourself first. That's when the outer reflections change, not vice versa. Hyperspace Oversoul Tools. I thank you for joining me once again. Janet Diane Mourglia-Swerdlow, expansions.com. Until next time, bye-bye.